Alrighty, and we are live here on the Bubbs on Sports podcast YouTube channel. Hopefully everybody is doing well so far, having a good day, enjoying some playoff postseason playing basketball so far. Got some games on now and some games on later on tonight. Chicago, Toronto right now, and then OKC Pelicans will be later today. But we're joined today by Luca, boys in the Big Apple Pod. How's it going, man? Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it. I like talking NBA. Obviously, it's an exciting time if you are a rooting for a basketball team that's in the playoffs, like my Knicks. Obviously, you Bubs with your Nets. So it's a very exciting time for all of us as the playoffs will start to culminate. Obviously, you mentioned the playing games. Two interesting games happened yesterday, and obviously two are expected to start tonight. Obviously, one has already started with the Raptors and Bulls, but I can't wait to talk some ball, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. I'm looking forward to it here. You talked about, I guess we could start off a little bit here, and then also those of you as you file into the show, we'll take some of your chats, and if you got any questions, drop them in comment section. We'll be talking all things playing, do little Knicks, little Nets preview there, some predictions, and then kind of close it out with our big prediction of who we think is going to go all the way and all that good stuff. But we'll start off with as you mentioned yesterday with some of the playing games. I guess we could start with the first one in Atlanta or in Miami between the Hawks and the Heat, where obviously I have a ton of news right now around Atlanta with Trae Young and what his future is. And, there's reports that they're monitoring him on a day-by-day basis. But they did go in there last night to a Heat team that's been battling with the Nets for that 6 seed, didn't get it. They were at home. Atlanta goes on the road, gets a win. They'll now face Boston. Kind of what did you see, takeaways from that game? Trae Young actually led the Hawks with 25.
Moving to the Heat side, they'll actually be facing. They'll stick around, obviously, because they lost. It
Yeah.
obviously depends with the whole playing thing. But I thought I'm never a big fan of the Heat. Actually going far in the playoffs. Neither the Hawks. It's kind of scary if you're the Heat and Kyle Lowry off the bench is your leading scorer. Did not show up all season. Was pretty much seen as a past his prime player even last year. I thought Bama Adebayo struggled really in the paint. His offense really wasn't there. Jimmy Butler wasn't efficient from the field, 6 of 19. So what worries me most, Bubs, is like I think the Heat have only like 3 or 4 good players that you can actually rely on. One of them wasn't Lowry. I thought it would be Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, and Bam Adebayo. The rest are just pretty meh role players. They're quite inconsistent. I like their coach a lot, but I don't see the Heat sticking around for much longer. For the Hawks, obviously it was a big game for them. I actually picked the Heat to win, but Trae Young, 8 of 18, I think he's going to get his points. He had 25 last night. The bench production was really good. Onyeka Okongwu, who really good young center, has some potential, 12 points. Sadiq Bey with very nice pickup at the deadline at 17. Jalen Johnson was out there doing his thing, and Bogdan Bogdanovic with 14 points. So they got some really nice production for the bench. As I said, Trae Young with 25 points and Jonte Murray with 18. But I think it's to keep in note that Trae Young that is not the most efficient player in the league. So he'll shoot his 20, he'll get his 25 or 27, but I think you're going to see most nights where he shoots 8 of 18, 7 of 19.
Yeah, which we've seen a lot. He's gonna shoot a lot. He's not as you mentioned, not a high clip type guy. But yeah, as you mentioned, the bench. I mean, even as you mentioned, Bogdanovic, where he went 5 of 11 from the floor, 14 points. They got a lot of production from their bench, as you mentioned. Clint Capella coming up big, rebounding with 21. Didn't have a huge night scoring, which isn't really his type of game, but
right,
it was solid. Solid rebounding. So obviously the Heat will get the winner of this game right now between Chicago and Toronto, which as we speak, Toronto's got an 11-point lead at the half, 58-47. Kind of, I guess, again, I agree. I don't think they'll probably go too far, but do you see them coming out of the play-in, whoever they get, or the winner of the game right now?
The winner, they might because of playoff experience. They're obviously a very playoff experienced team dating back a few years. So I could see the experience coming out. Heat are one of the stronger defensive teams, but I just worry about their offense and scoring production. It's rather inconsistent if it's not Jimmy Butler, if it's not Tyler Hero or Bam Adebayo. That's just my opinion. But I think they're going to end up playing. I think they would be playing Milwaukee they'll be playing Milwaukee. Yeah. I actually had a bracket, and, we did this on Monday on Boys of the Gapple. I had the Heat originally winning the game against Atlanta, but the Hawks would go on to play. The Hawks would end up playing the second game and they would win. But the Heat, I'm surprised the Heat lost yesterday, but kind of not.
Yeah.
So I think I think the Heat will end up advancing because of playoff experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be tough for both these teams. I mean, to go on the road and beat Milwaukee, who is a force, and for Atlanta to go on the road and beat Boston is going to be tough. I mean, for both these
Of
teams,
course,
it's going to be difficult. And that's kind of how it is with the play-in, where we haven't really seen, at least I can't remember so far these first only couple years here with the play-in, we haven't really seen a play-in team go deep. A
that's
team where
true.
they come through the play-in and then they win a first round matchup. Maybe they win the second round, Eastern Conference Finals or Western Conference Finals, whatever. We haven't seen that yet. So it'll be interesting. We might see it when you go to the Western Conference side. And I guess we could,
Right.
kind of shift gears there, where this is a Lakers team that is just, it's weird. I don't really know how to feel about them going into the postseason. They'll obviously get Memphis first round and Minnesota, who had some craziness to end the season with the whole Rudy Gobert incident. They'll obviously get the winner of OKC New Orleans, which will be played later tonight after whenever the Chicago-Toronto game concludes. Your thoughts on last night's game, and can LA potentially make a run if they're healthy in LeBron James and AD?
I believe in LeBron James. Obviously, AD is a huge ticking injury bomb, if you want to call it, because he's
Mm-hmm.
always hurt. But when he's arguably had his best season statistically to this point. What we're like, the game was weird. Obviously, as you said yesterday, Bubbs. I just didn't like the situational basketball from either team. Neither
Yeah.
team really had smarts because I don't. First of all, I don't think the Timberwolves are going to go that far. I think they're a team that's kind of in disarray right now. Obviously, Jaden McDaniels, one of their better defensive players, one of the more underrated defensive players across the league, as a wing. I think he fractured his hand by punching a wall. Rudy Gobert obviously gets suspended for punching Kyle Anderson, but that's a team that's ready to implode, in my opinion. The offense that they ran yesterday in crunch time, they were fortunate to get out of regulation tied because it was just poor. It was all ISO
Mm-hmm.
ball. They were relying heavily on Anthony Edwards, and Edwards struggled badly yesterday. 3 of 17 from the field and 9 points. He was 3 or 4 from the free throw line as well, but he was so disappointing yesterday. And it
Yeah.
was all ISO ball. It was poor situational basketball. And they got saved by a ridiculous Anthony Davis foul beyond the 3-point line when he stepped on Mike Conley's foot. So I'm not totally impressed by the Minnesota Timberwolves as a team, honestly. But for the Lakers, I do see them actually potentially upsetting Memphis because they're also a team in a bit of disarray right now. They're a very young team, but they're
Yep.
not very disciplined on the outside of court things because you obviously have the John Morant stuff. They're starting to have a reputation for one of the more hated teams in the league.
Yeah.
Desmond Bain is a huge trash talker. Dylan Brooks is one of the most dirty players in the NBA. Obviously, he has his own reputation. So, and also another thing, they don't have a lot of great 3-point shooting outside of Desmond Bain and Luke Kennard. They don't have a lot of great 3-point shooting, so the spacing is not going to be as great as people think.
Yeah, I totally agree. Definitely. I think you're spot on. And again, this Lakers team, to me, it's just so like Colin Coward, who did, to be honest, I think he has some wild takes at times.
Of course.
But he did, again, I think, and I agree with you on, when it comes to Memphis and some of the perimeter game and stuff. But this Lakers team, again, the biggest concern is obviously the health. If this is a team, when they're on, they can beat anybody any given night. I mean, they have LeBron James and they have Anthony Davis. And he made a point as if this was like a March Madness style tournament and it was one game, I could see them going all the way, if they got to get 6 wins. But instead, given that this is 7-game series, obviously, not every series, might not go to 7 games, but it's such a gauntlet. I just don't know if I can trust all these guys to stay healthy. But if they do, it's like, again, you have Anthony Davis and LeBron James. It's kind of how I felt towards the end of, I guess, the Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving era, where there was so much drama off the court. But as a fan, you still kind of said to yourself, at the end of the day, we still have 2 of the top 10 players in the league. Anything can happen any given night. Like, if they're on, you're going to win. So that's the feeling I kind of get. But then again, it's just, I just don't know how to feel about this Lakers team. it's tough.
I actually think better of I actually think better of them now before the deadline because I thought they
Hmm.
made some really key additions. You obviously have
Yeah.
D'Angelo Russell, his second tenure as a Laker, a little more mature. His
Yeah.
game is definitely more mature. Malik Beasley is a sharpshooter. Jared Vanderbilt for perimeter defense, and another guy that we haven't mentioned, Austin Reeves, has really came on
Hmm.
in the starting lineup. He's a shooter and he's also a very good playmaker. So those are the key role players. And to me, that's why I think they'll at least win one round or at least challenge a team to at least 7 games. To me, I predicted that they're going to go to the second round and they will be facing a team like Golden State, whether that's going to be like one of those 7 game series against, because it's going to be two very experienced playoff teams.
Yeah, totally. And another guy too that the Lakers added was Rui Hachimura, who had
Yes,
a pretty nice night last night, shooting, I think, what was it, 3 of 8 from 12 points from the field. Another guy, another bench piece that can come and give you 25, 27 minutes off the bench and be a really solid asset. The Lakers really saved their season at the deadline.
yes,
Getting rid of Westbrook was absolutely needed, and they were going nowhere. I mean, they started the year 2-10. I think.
that's
I mean,
correct.
they were horrible to start the season, and it was kind of one of those things where you started to wonder about how much LeBron could take all this losing and stuff. Obviously, missed the playoffs last year,
Mm-hmm.
but what they did at the deadline, as you mentioned, really saved their season. So it's going to be interesting. I guess we could talk here a little bit too. Go back to kind of the Timberwolves, and in the matchup tonight, OKC, New Orleans. Who do you see? Come out of there, kind of an exciting matchup with some good pieces on paper. Brandon Ingram, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, some solid pieces in that play-in matchup later tonight.
I like both teams actually. I thought the Thunder overperformed this year because they were a very young team. They have obviously a really good star and pretty much a contender for most improved player in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You got a really good point guard up and coming in Josh Giddey. You have Lou Dort, who's one of the best perimeter defenders in basketball. You have Isaiah Joe, who's a really good perimeter shooter. I think he shot over 40% from three. But I'm going to get the Pelicans on in this one, but I'm not too sure that I'm not completely confident that it's going to be, a straight victory for them. I think that's going to be down to the wire because obviously they don't have Zion, but I love Brandon Ingram. I like Jose Alvarado. I like what's his name? Now I'm blanking on it. Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy. I love Trey Murphy. Really good 3-and-D guy. So I think they have some nice young role players, but I wouldn't be surprised if they lost this either.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think according to ESPN Analytics, they're giving the Pelicans 62.1% chance of winning, which makes sense. Again, they were finished
Right.
above 500. The Thunder were slightly below 500, but the Thunder are one of those teams that they can. They're just kind of a young team. Again, as you
Yeah.
mentioned, Giddey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I could see them making some noise, whether it's moving on to to the playoffs, winning tonight and winning again. To beat Minnesota, they're going to have to obviously get the 1 seed at Denver, but
Of
I could
course.
see them being one of those kind of young teams where they kind of potentially shock, not beat Denver in 7,
Right.
but maybe take the first game or take them to 6, kind of make it interesting, not really where they're just some easy team just to beat, a typical, a play-in 10 seed.
Of course.
I could definitely see that. So there's potential for that game tonight, definitely to be fun with two teams that got some fun rosters and some pieces to them that can obviously make some noise. So it'll be interesting. I was just looking at the standings. I guess we could touch on this as well. The Mavericks, what a collapse that was. I mean, they go out and trade for Kyrie Irving. And as a Nets fan, it makes me happy because the way Kyrie ended here was an utter disaster. And I was
It was a
glad.
disaster.
Yeah, I was glad he was gone because it was just from day one. I mean, it was a disaster. The whole Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, the whole James Harden is a whole nother issue. But that was an epic collapse. They were like 30. They were I forget exactly what they were when they traded for Kyrie, and then they finished 38-44 and
They were worse
2
off
games out of the
technically.
play-in. What was that?
I was gonna say they were worse off technically
Oh yeah,
because
they were.
I think they were like a decent record when
Yeah.
when before Kyrie Irving, and then they just plummeted under 500 with Kyrie.
Mhm. Yeah, they were comfortably in the playoffs without Kyrie. And then they bring in Kyrie and they just drop. I mean, to even drop out of the play-in, I mean, to be in to Mavericks to be in the category with the Jazz, the Rockets, the Spurs, and Trailblazers are the other team in the West. When you have Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, it's just wild. I mean, they were horrible. But how do you see that playing out in the offseason? Because again, I think they want to bring him back. Mark Cuban said they want to try and bring him back, but it's just, and then you start to have the issues of how much can Luca take, because let's be honest here, Luca never really had much, hasn't had really
Right.
much help. They try and give it to him, and it was a disaster in Kyrie.
Exactly. I think it's nothing short. I think it's nothing short of a disaster. It is a complete train wreck what the Dallas
Mm-hmm.
Mavericks have done. Now, obviously, as a Knicks fan, I'm a little more salty because they decided to tank at the end of the season. My problem
Yeah.
was, Bubs, you acquired Kyrie Irving, you have Doncic, they're both healthy. You're one game out of the play-in, and you decide to completely just give up on the season, which I thought was ridiculous. I don't understand that because you're essentially mocking the play-in. I think Tim
Yep.
McMahon of ESPN was like, or at least reported that the NBA is going to look into this because that is a mockery. That you would deliberately tanked the last couple of games. You put in guys like Theo Pinson and Frank Ntilikina, but overall, Kyrie Irving is a question mark in itself. I don't know if he returns to Dallas because he already made headlines by criticizing the fans there. Like, I think he said something
Yeah.
like, "Well, you're not on the court, all this and that," and he's a very soft player. He's a very sensitive player, so I don't see him sticking around there personally.
Yeah.
But for Luka Doncic, I think the loss of Jalen Brunson, who's obviously on my Knicks,
Yeah.
is huge because he obviously was one to take pressure off Doncic, and he was a big help last year in the playoffs when Doncic was out. But I think I like Doncic as a player. He's a top 5 player, but I think there'll be questions raised around him because Kendrick Perkins mentioned, he's unathletic. He doesn't play
Mm-hmm.
defense. He's an ISO heavy player, and and obviously those questions raised about Doncic, but there's also a lack of defense on the team, respectively. Like they lost a Dorian Finney-Smith. Christian Wood's going to be gone. Now, Wood is not a great defender, but he is a very good scorer of the basketball as a stretch 4. But again,
Yep.
they just lack defense. To me, they lack a rim protector. I could see them going after a guy like Miles Turner this offseason as a true rim protector, pick and roll, can stretch the floor. Like a great fit that I saw last year, honestly, was DeAndre Ayton to the Mavs. Now he's obviously back with the Suns, but he needs a rim protector badly, and he needs also perimeter defenders badly because you do not want to keep being in the play-in, out of the play with Luka Doncic. You're going to be just wasting his career.
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it right on the head with that last statement. You're wasting his best years right now. I mean, and again, to kind of just tank out of the play-in, like with as you mentioned, with they were one game out with, was it 2 to play or
3 or
1 out?
4, honestly.
Yeah,
Like,
they
yeah,
had a chance and then they just gave up. um, But you mentioned about Kyrie, which
right.
again, you nailed it on the head with what he was, talking about the fans and stuff. And that's the feeling I got when he left the Nets, because when he left the Nets, he trashed the organization. Like he said,
Oh,
"Oh,
yeah.
it's horrible." There were so many internal issues. And then when KD left or got traded, not left, but traded, he said how he kind of not praised the organ. He didn't praise the organization, but it was unfortunate that didn't work out. He never really talked about any of the internal stuff. Like Kyrie, it's like he walks into the locker room and he just, he doesn't care. Like he's all about himself. He's all me,
Oh, of
me,
course.
me. Not none of it. He does not care about the team. He thinks he's like this crazy guy. He's done nothing. I mean, let's be honest here. He's not a number 1. I mean, he's a 2.
No.
He can't lead a team. I mean, he can't. I mean, he's horrible. I mean, you saw how it ended in Boston. And now you start to have questions, even with him being a legit, reliable number 2 option, because it failed in Brooklyn. And so far it's, a disaster in Dallas where they were in the playoffs. He goes there and they drop out. So it's interesting, but he's just one of these guys where he just doesn't care about the team, all about him, thinks he's like this great player when, again, I know he had that clutch shot in the playoffs and they came back, or the NBA finals, came back from down 3-1. I get all that. But what has he done? I mean, he hasn't done anything else since that. He's done nothing without LeBron James. Kyrie Irving without LeBron James would be average. Let's be honest here.
I think, Kyrie Irving without LeBron James, you'll get to the playoffs with competent role players, but I think you'll win a round or 2. If that, you're not going to the finals. But I see Kyrie as a pariah across the league. Like, obviously, he doesn't have fans in Brooklyn. He doesn't have fans in Boston. He can never. It's always something with him. Whether you could talk about obviously with the Amazon stuff, with talking about the anti-Semitic stuff, talking about the Holocaust and all that. We don't need to get into that, but he's just I don't know what to say. He's a jerk. a little more than
Yeah.
that, honestly. But he's his own pariah, and he has nobody to blame but himself. But the problem is he doesn't acknowledge it.
Nope. He thinks he's perfect. Like at some point he's got to recognize it because if he keeps going to these teams and they keep losing, I mean, and the media's drilled him, and rightfully so. He deserves
Of
all the
course,
criticism, and he deflects the criticism too. He kind of plays like the "woe is me" game when they ask him tough questions or they start to blame him or the fans start to crush him. It's like he acts like he's done nothing. It's like,
right? Of
I
course,
mean,
he
the
could. He
fans
could.
have every right to crush you.
Yeah, he thinks he's done no wrong, and
Yeah,
it's awful. He's an awful human being. He's a great player, but
yeah,
I don't even with Luka Doncic, he gives up the thing with the backcourt of Doncic and Kyrie Irving is they give up as many points as they score. So you're obviously playing from behind most nights because of that.
yeah. It's just going to be interesting to see what Dallas does. I mean, 20 games with Kyrie, they go. There was an exact stat. I forget what exactly the record was. It was way below 500, in the 20 games he played.
Right.
But it just as we mentioned tons of times already, a disaster in Dallas. And I guess as a Knicks fan, you've got to be pretty fired up that you guys passed up on Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. I know it was rough there for a
Right.
little bit, but I mean, again, the Nets are still in the playoffs, but a big reason why is because of Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. We played around 500 basketball since then, 11 and 13, I think exactly since the deadline. But I mean, you guys have now brought in Jalen Brunson and some really big pieces.
Yeah, I just want to add on the Kyrie thing. The Dallas Mavericks with Kyrie Irving were 8-12. So
Man,
obviously
I
that
knew,
was a
yeah,
positive sign.
that's horrible.
They were barely above 500 without him. They were 30 and 31, but they were at least stable. But obviously the fit's not going to work out. But
No,
shifting over to my Knicks, as you said, it's been we obviously the Knicks fans, we expected like the 9 to 10 seed before the season. Jalen Brunson is awesome. We wanted to get rid of the bad contracts from the previous offseason. Derrick Rose, the previous offseason was signed to about $14 million a year over 4 years. Obviously, he's been injured. Now he's out of the rotation. Same with Evan Fournier. I thought it was a solid contract at the time 2 years ago, about $18 million a year for a sharpshooter who also could do some playmaking. He's out of the rotation. But the biggest question, there were two mainly, Bubbs. You had Julius Randle. Is he going to bounce back from a bad year last year? He completely regressed. His defense was bad. His off the court antics were bad. That was obviously a big question mark. He's been excellent this season. He's probably going to end up in an all NBA team. He was an all-star this season. He's taken the Knicks from heck and back. He's been the main cog of this team, and I was a big Julius Randle and I was a big anti Julius Randle fan last year because of all the stuff he pulled.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, he completely turned it around. And obviously the question comes, will he perform in the playoffs? But everything seems right with Julius Randle this year. Does he take plays off defense? Sure. But he's more comfortable with the key cog and Jalen Brunson next to him. The second main question with the Knicks before the season was RJ Barrett and how is he going to grow? He had finished the season well last season, ending at 20 points per game for the first time in his career. The problem was he wasn't the most efficient. He is not a efficient player. He is very much high volume, low efficiency. He'll get 25 points, but he'll go 8 for 19.
Yeah.
The defense was solid last year, but it's regressed. RJ Barrett has not. You can't really, Bubbs. Honestly, you really can't pick a spot where he's like, oh, he's improved. Maybe free throw shooting. That's it. But he's not a great finisher around the rim. He struggles there. He's not great at finishing through contact. He doesn't have any post moves. So plus to add to that, he doesn't have amazing athleticism or a quick first step. So it's going to be easy to guard him. And it's obviously a big question mark come playoffs. His 3-point shooting has regressed. His defense has regressed. His passing in the open transition game has regressed. So I think that, I'm an RJ Barrett fan. I obviously own shirts of him and all. I root for his success, but he's been very disappointing this year. But if you want to talk about players that have stepped up, Isaiah Hartenstein has been a key cog off the bench. Emmanuel quickly should be the sixth man of the year because of his improvement in the 3-point shooting and the defense and the playmaking overall. Quentin Grimes has been awesome in the starting lineup as a tertiary playmaker and a scorer. Also, awesome defender. Josh Hart that trade was awesome. The Knicks won that wholeheartedly. I don't care that we traded a first-round pick and Cam Reddish for him. I don't care. Josh Hart should be here for the long term, I hope. But, those to me are the main cogs of this Knicks team.
Yeah, totally. And I agree too with what you're talking about RJ Barrett. I was just looking at his numbers. He actually got worse this year in 3-point percentage. So his shooting is not obviously a strength. And he hasn't, again, as you mentioned, he hasn't really taken that big step in any real category. But you nailed it on the head. It's funny because Knicks fans, and I guess your relationship with Julius Randle has been very interesting over his tenure because
Yeah,
the
so.
first year was not good. And then the second
Right.
season, go to the postseason. Great. He struggles in the postseason, but the fact that you still get there is obviously good. Then last year, he struggles again, the off the field, off the court stuff and all that stuff. And now this year he's back. And I mean, he's putting up 25 and 10. So I mean, he's out there every night. Again, he might take a couple plays off defensively, but he's played in 77 games. I mean, he's putting up big time numbers. And you see, I mean, when he's out there, he is at times, him and Brunson are the Knicks' big 1-2 punch. I mean, that's just the way it is. And Brunson has obviously been just a diamond. You guys have found putting up 24 a game, having a career. Obviously, what was that? Was that a 4-year deal for
4-year
Brunson?
deal for Brunson,
Something.
about $26 million a year. I got to say, for Brunson, I thought he was going to be good, but I didn't think he was
Yeah.
going to be this good. Like,
Oh yeah, totally.
my opinion, Bubs, he was robbed of an all-star appearance. He should have been
No, yeah.
there. He should have been there. Like, he was dropping multiple 40-point games. He's just a consistent scorer every night. Like, he doesn't have a quick first step, but he has the footwork, which is pretty much unheard of for a point guard
Yeah.
like him. Like, he's very small, he's undersized, you could say, but it's just uncharacteristic for a point guard of that size to have the footwork he has, and he can create off the dribble, which helps.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, again, we talked about, I guess, when Brunson signed, my biggest thing, just as like an NBA fan perspective, was can he take that big jump? Because point guard has been your biggest need, and he's always been, throughout his career going up to this point, he's gotten better. I mean, he put up, I think, 16 per game. I think it was a year ago, 16 or 17 per night. I think in his last season in Dallas, and in this year, he's obviously made the jump. He's 20th in points per game and 18th in assists, and leads the team in assists, putting up over 6 a game. So he's just turned into that absolute, just 26 years old, has taken that huge jump and this is, I guess, kind of what to expect from Brunson each year now, where when he's out there getting a big time role, starting every game, throughout his career in Dallas, he came off the bench a lot.
Yeah.
This is him. Like, you guys are going to get this for the next 3 years. And that, as long as he's playing at this level, the Knicks are going to be in contention. That's just the bottom line.
Well, of course, the thing I love about Brunson is, he's a he scores a lot of points. Obviously, like, I was at the Knicks Nets game where he scored like 38, and it was like the Knicks had like 140 points or something like that. I think they like won 140, 112 or something like that. But regardless, like, Brunson will score 38, but it'll be like 14 of 17 from the field. It's a decent volume, but it's like he misses he could only miss like 3 shots a game. He's just I don't want to say he's immaculate, but he's excellent. There's a lot to love about him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 9.1% so far this season per game, and he's put up 25. He's put up, so I guess we can kind of move into your Cavs series. He's put up 25.3 points per game against the Cavs, 25-6, shooting at a 45.5% clip from 3 and a 47.5% clip from the field. So what are your thoughts, I guess, overall on what the Knicks have to do against Cleveland, Brunson, and defensively and all that good stuff? And then we can kind of talk a little about Cleveland's roster as well.
Of course. The thing is, like, I take this into context. The Knicks had won the season series 3-1. That's fine and all great. And some people will assume based off that they could beat the Cavs in the playoffs. And I don't think it's that easy, because 2 years ago, the Knicks swept the Hawks in the season series, and they ended up falling in the playoffs 4-1, losing it in 5. But there's a lot of things you could say. I think Julius Randle has to perform for the Knicks to officially move forward, hopefully get into the second round. Mitchell Robinson's going to have to play really well against a former player of yours, Jared Allen, who's ascended to near all-star status. Him and Mobley are going to be a force in the paint. We're facing if you want to talk about the regular season, the number 1 defense in the NBA. You obviously got Darius Garland in the backcourt. Mitchell doesn't play any defense. Isaac Okoro is a nice wingman as a defender. But for the Knicks offensively, their game plan has to be, move the ball, obviously, and the Cavs don't defend the three ball particularly well. So you want to get as many open looks as you can. You want to stay away from the paint because Jared Allen, Evan Mobley be just standing right there. The next version of the Twin Towers, they're excellent defensively, but that's the main part. Randall has to perform. I'll mention the X factor in a little bit, but for defensively, I don't think you're stopping Donovan Mitchell wholeheartedly. You're not going to stop him. He's going to get like 30, 40 points in the playoffs. He's one of the best playoff performers across the NBA. So you're going to probably throw Quentin Grimes or RJ Barrett at him, whoever. I'd stick Jalen Brunson, Isaac Okoro if he's starting, because Okoro is not a particularly great offensive player. He can't create off the dribble. And that's similarly what the Hawks did a couple of years ago with Trae Young. They placed Trae Young on our weakest not perimeter shooter, a scorer in general, because Reggie Bullock cannot create off the dribble. He cannot drive inside. But I think the spacing obviously is better for the Knicks, but I think that Tom Thibodeau has to scheme up defensively, get Jalen Brunson on the weakest shooter. And for the Knicks, they got to be big on those boards. Julius Randle's an excellent rebounder. Mitchell Robinson's an excellent rebounder, both offensively and defensively. So the Knicks have to be one of the best on the glass. They are one of the best teams on the glass across the NBA. They're probably top 5, honestly, in offensive rebounds and defensive rebounds. But I'm surprised that the Cavs, as good as big men they have in Allen and Mobley, they're one of the weakest rebounding teams. So those second chance opportunities on offense are going to help, and the defensive rebounds are going to help push out and transition. Obviously, the playoffs have come up with a slower pace, but defensively, it's contained the shooting. You might have to pack the paint because I'm worried about I'm not worried, but Cavs fans should be worried about the bench when it comes to perimeter shooting and the consistency of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Mitchell Robinson, obviously Jared Allen battle is going to be fun to watch. Two big battles between the bigs, Claxton and then Embiid, and then obviously Mitchell Robinson, and then former net Jared Allen, which I still regret that we traded him. But we'll get to the Nets here a little later on. But yeah, you nailed it right on the head. Look, Donovan Mitchell, and again, this is, as you mentioned, he's going to do his thing. Like, it's just how he is. He's a superstar. He's going to probably put up 30, 35. If you can contain the other pieces, shoot at a high clip from perimeter. I mean, a guy in Josh Hart has been a phenomenal pickup for you guys. I believe he's shooting at like a 50% or over a 50% clip, I think, from 3. So he's one of those pieces too that, needs to step up. Brunson and Randall as well. I think Randall practiced. Did he practice yesterday? I think, right?
He practiced actually today, but they have not put him through contact yet. So in my opinion, I don't think he plays game 1, maybe game 2 or game 3. But to me, just keep him at least at 100%. Like, I'm not saying Randall isn't a key piece or anything, but you want him healthy. Hopefully they could steal a game in Cleveland, because that's obviously the hope. But hopefully Randall is healthy. He's mentally healthy, and he's rested. So I think that's why Randall will have a better postseason, in addition to having Jalen Brunson as his co-star.
Yeah. And I guess just one other note here, and we could touch on some other stuff as well. Like, would you trust, Obi Toppin in a situation if Randall's misses game 1? Obi Toppin has actually played pretty well in the couple games he's been out, but how do you see him faring in a playoff situation if he has to play, game 1 on Saturday?
Obi Toppin in his rookie season actually was kind of struggling. He found the rhythm at the end of his rookie season, but in the playoffs, he really took off. So in terms of Obi Toppin starting, like obviously the regular season is different from the postseason. The regular season, he averages at least 20 a game without Julius Randle, obviously in that starting lineup. So I think Obi will be really successful. I think when the lights shine bright, he'll definitely perform because he brings the Knicks a lot of energy. He brings 3-point shooting. He doesn't bring the defense, which is a problem, but he's going to bring that energy, especially in transition. So I think he'll be a big piece. Especially if he gets the minutes, because obviously Tom Thibodeau limits his minutes to 11, 12 minutes a game. But if Randall's playing, he's going to play at least 30.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I tend to agree with you on the Randall stuff, where I think he might miss game 1, but he'll be back game 2, 3, especially if you guys fall in game 1. You're going to need him back for the remaining series, especially when you get back home to the Garden. But I guess we could touch upon kind of your X factor, and then 2, what do you think? Again, Josh Hart, I don't know if that might be your X factor. I don't know. You kind of drop in, I guess, your X factor for the series, and then just what Josh Hart has brought to the table, another guy that has been a huge deadline piece.
Well, I can honestly think of two X factors. Number one, I was about to say Mitchell Robinson, but obviously that's more of an important matchup. But my
Mhm.
two X factors, I'm going to start with number one: R.J. Barrett or Karis LeVert. Who outplays the other? Karis LeVert
Yeah.
obviously is a former net,
Yeah.
and LeVert can go off for 20 a night, but he also could shoot poorly on other nights. He's not very
Yeah.
consistent. He's a good shooter. He's a good defender. But to me, it's going to be the battle between the both of them because they're kind of the same caliber player. They're very inconsistent, but they can pop off. So if RJ Barrett outplays Karis LeVert, the Knicks will advance. If Karis LeVert outplays RJ Barrett, the Cavs will advance. Number two, I think the second X factor is Tom Thibodeau, the head coach. I want to see what he does offensively. I want to see what kind of blitzes he throws at Donovan Mitchell. I want to see what his game plan is defensively because he did get out coached last time in the playoffs. And Thibodeau, isn't the steadiest in the playoffs. Um, obviously the last time with the Knicks in 2021, but Timberwolves obviously they got knocked out by the Rockets amongst other things. But I just want him to be innovative a little bit. I want the team to move the ball on offense because they're very stagnant, they're very slow paced, which is the slow paced offense is very fit for the playoffs. But another thing, I want Tibbs to enable a 10th or 11th man of the
Mhm.
rotation because rest is very key for these players, especially in the long run of the playoffs. If you hope to advance, like enable a guy like get Evan Fournier off the bench if you need scoring.
Yeah.
Get Deuce I want to see Deuce McBride on Donovan Mitchell, and I want to see Deuce McBride on Darius Garland. Lock him up. He's a very good perimeter defender. He doesn't bring much offensively, maybe sometimes 3-point shooting or playmaking, but get those guys. To me, those are the two cogs that should come off the bench on occasion. Not saying it should be all the time, but if a guy like Jalen Brunson or Emmanuel Quickly needs rest, got to put in those guys.
Yeah, definitely. The bench is obviously gonna play a big role, especially with guys like Quentin Grimes and those pieces as you've already talked about. So I guess to kind of close things out on the Knicks here, what is your prediction? And then I guess overall, I mean, how much optimism do you have going into this series in terms of coming out on top?
I originally would have said Cavs in six, but I think I'm going to go Knicks in six. Honestly, I'm feeling that optimism. It's getting close to Saturday night. I can't wait. So I think Julius Randle will come back better. I think that's the more important thing. I think RJ Barrett's going to play well, playing off the others, especially if he plays with the second unit because they get to push out in transition. And being in transition is one of RJ Barrett's strengths. So I think he'll be in the gym this week. He'll be working on his 3-point jumper. He'll be finishing at the rack. I think you know what? Honestly, I like our depth better than Cleveland. I like our
Yeah.
bench better than Cleveland. I like our young talent better than Cleveland, especially on the bench. So I think that's going to be the main piece to decide who wins. But that's how I see the series ending. I think the Knicks win in six. I would have said the Cavs originally, but yeah, that's how I see the series ending.
Yeah, I tend to agree too. I think it's going to be probably a 6-7 game series. I don't think this is going to
Has to
be
be,
anywhere. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a quick 5-game series or a sweep. There's going to be, as Chuck said it last night at TNT, out of all the series in the Eastern Conference first round series between obviously, seven and then or Boston and then Atlanta and then Milwaukee and then whoever they play and then the Nets Sixers and then obviously the Knicks Cavs. But this is one of the better series. The
it
5-4
is.
game, two teams that match up pretty well against each other. It's also a little bit one of those games where, as a Knicks fan, you guys wanted Donovan Mitchell, but now it'd be nice to go ahead and beat him, as you
Of
guys went
course,
out and instead brought in Jalen Brunson instead of making that big splash for Donovan Mitchell. But yeah, and again, even the regular season where you guys led the season series, you go into this, you're on the road for the first two. It's going to be a good, fun, physical series. And as just an NBA fan, I hope Julius Randle's healthy for the whole series because I think that's just going to make the games better, especially late games where if the games are tight. I just think the most talent on the floor is just good for the viewers. So I'm hoping just from an NBA fan perspective that Julius Randle's out there.
Two more things before we're obviously going to move on to the Nets. Like, I just hope Julius Randle, like, the thing that bothers me with him, or at least could bother me, is the mental psyche. Because John
Mm,
Collins got into his head the last time they were in the
yep.
playoffs. And will Evan Mobley do the same? But I honestly like Randle against Mobley. Mobley's a very good defender, but he's very lean. Julius Randle is all bulky on the interior, and I think he could post him up. Randle could take his matchup. He can, do the fadeaway jumpers, knock down some threes on him. Not saying that Mobley isn't a good defender, but I think Randle has the better body type, and it's definitely. I wouldn't say it's a mismatch, but I think Randle has the better advantage. But you asked about Josh Hart. Josh Hart does a lot of everything
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
He's obviously not a great player, but he's, I think, a really good role player. He does everything well, as I said. He can pass, he can shoot, he plays defense. He helped. To me, he was the biggest, addition to the Knicks bench because he can push and transition. Because the Knicks bench is different from the Knicks starting lineup. The starting lineup is very slow paced. They grind it out. It's pretty much iso ball, if you want to call it that way. The Knicks on the bench, fast in transition. They move the ball a lot, and they're efficient and knock their shots down from three.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun series. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Josh Hart has been just amazing for you guys. I mean, was looking at the stat. I think what's 51%. I think he is from three this season. He's been awesome. And again, if you guys got any questions, pop them in the comments down below. But yeah, it's gonna be a good series. Knicks looks like good chance of obviously moving on. Looking for what is this first playoff series
It
win
would be
in
their
how
first
long?
since
What would be the Melo?
2013 against the
Yeah,
Celtics. That would be actually 10 years. 10 years. I can't believe
jeez.
that's the last time we won a playoff series. Carmelo Anthony, the beating the Knicks. Well, I no, the Knicks beating the Celtics in 6. So it's been a while.
Been a while, yeah. Feel your pain from a Jets fan perspective, where we haven't been to the playoffs, and us and the Buffalo Sabres are now because Sacramento obviously made it. We'll
Yep.
touch on some of the other NBA stuff, and that's going to be actually a good series. First round, Sacramento's got a pretty solid team, but we'll get to that here a little later on. So I guess now we can move to the Nets, and from a Nets fan perspective, and Luke, I'll also let you jump on this. It's been a wild year. I mean, just overall it's kind of been, a season broken up in a couple different phases where you started here with Steve Nash as your coach. That's the first phase. He gets fired. You bring in Jacques Vaughn, who actually was his second time he's been the intern because he was the intern after we fired Kenny Atkinson. And then the COVID hit and he was the coach in the bubble and actually did a pretty solid job. Nobody played for the Nets in the bubble. And he, in the 8 regular season games that they played or whatever, he had them playing pretty hard and pretty competitive. So that was the second phase. And then the third phase was the whole Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving trade. Well, the third phase was actually Kevin Durant going down, which turns out to be his final game as the Net against Miami. That was the third phase. The Nets struggled during that time, which wasn't surprising. And in the fourth phase was the whole Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving trade. And now we're past that now where Mikal Bridges, we get him, bring him into the deal. Dorian Finney-Smith, Dinwiddie coming back. Was obviously with the Nets over a couple years ago. I think he's been away now for 2 seasons, and now he's back. Cam Johnson also got him from Phoenix in the deal, and a ton of draft picks as well. The Nets made out pretty well. Look, they went 11-13 after the trade deadline. A team with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving is obviously better, but I'm looking forward to it. And again, I'm hyped up. I might not be hyped up after the game, if they get smoked game 1, or this might give me 2019 vibes where they take game 1 in Philly and they're taking us lightly, and we'll see. But to me, again, Mikal Bridges has been just phenomenal, and I hope he's back. He's got to be back. He's really kind of taken that jump to be a star. I mean, he's in 27 games. He's putting up 26.1 per game. He's had a couple 40-plus point games. At 26 years old, he's been a phenomenal pickup, a guy that a lot of people talked highly of when we brought him over, and he was solid in Phoenix. And now he's just taking that next jump, and he's already got some playoff experience. I'm looking forward to seeing what Bridges. Kind of, I guess your thoughts too on from an NBA, just from another outside fan perspective, on what Bridges has delivered to the Nets, because he's been down the stretch here since the deadline. He's been our best player, where he's put up, I think he had 44, 42 in the final couple games of the season. He had a nice 30-point game where in that 1-point win we had against Utah. He's had a couple really big games. He's been awesome. So your thoughts on Bridges?
Yeah, I've always been a fan of Bridges. I mean, a lot of Knicks fans, including myself, should make the note that we should have drafted him over Kevin Knox. That was such a bad selection. But regardless, Bridges, was kind of confined to a role more of a 3-and-D guy in Phoenix. Obviously, he
Hmm.
was very successful in that role. You could argue potentially defensive player of the year. Awesome, awesome, awesome player. But, coming to the Nets, he's the number one option. You finally get to see why he was drafted. I think it was like at 11, I think. I'll check the report. Yeah, he was drafted 10th overall. Now you get to see why he was drafted 10th overall. He's the number one option. He plays excellent defense. He could definitely score. So Bridges is like the number one option, obviously the number one option for you guys, but I think he's going to be a really good player.
Yeah.
Obviously in a more expanded role, more shots, more reps. So I like Bridges a lot.
Yeah, I do. I think he's obviously one of the big keys in the series. He was prior to the deadline, he was only putting up 17.2 per game, and he took obviously a 9-point jump from that. And not even just that, but he's reliable. He played 83 games this year from Phoenix and Brooklyn. He hasn't missed a game. I mean, he's everything you kind of want leading your team. And I've loved what I've seen. He's been awesome because he was good in Phoenix, but he wasn't to this level. And again, maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but I hope he's back. I want him back. He better be back. Because this could kind of be a big foundational piece moving forward for the Nets. But Claxton's also had a very good year too. But to get into the matchup against Philly, look, Philly's the more talented team, obviously. As a Nets fan, I'm hoping to knock off Harden because I can't stand that guy. The only remaining guy from the big three I'm still okay with is KD because he's the only guy that had a normal exit. Like they traded him. He didn't trash the organization. Like Harden was he quit on the team. I still have theories that Harden wore a fat suit in Houston before he got traded. That was just a mess. But obviously Philly's the more competitive team. I mean, Joel Embiid's had a phenomenal season. Good chance he wins MVP. Harden as well. They have Tyrese Maxey, who's a young, very solid guard. To me, what the Nets got to do in this series is they've got to take shots from deep. They've got to be shooting threes because perimeter Philly's not good. Their perimeter defense, especially from the guards, Harden and Maxey, it's not great. So I would like to see them take some shots. I would like to see them stretch the floor, get the perimeter going, shooting threes. I think that's important early on. If they can knock down a couple threes, get in a rhythm, I think that's big. I think also if it's going to be tough to get the ball to Claxton. It's going to be tough for Claxton, I feel like, to really get going because he's going to be on Embiid. And the last time we faced the Sixers, Jared Allen was against Embiid and he fouled out in game one. So I think it's important for our guards and for our perimeter shooting to get going early, especially with a defense. Harden obviously being the one main guy, they're not very good against the perimeter. So I think that's important. Look, Embiid, I mean, I guess you could just talk a little bit on what Embiid has done in this season, and then we can get into a little bit how the Nets got to combat that.
Embiid's honestly my pick for MVP. He should have won last year, in my opinion. I thought he was robbed, but I definitely think he's the front runner this year. But if I'm talking about like the Nets game plan on offense, I think it's moving the ball. Obviously, you want to stay away from the paint from Joel Embiid. But if you want to be honest, like if you take Embiid out to the perimeter, I think he's a little bit more slower. But if he stays in the paint, you just don't want to be there. I was about to say the Cavs. The Sixers have two really good defenders on the perimeter with PJ Tucker and DeAnthony Melton. Yeah. So I think that's something to look at. Basically, it's the 3-point shooting, it's the ball movement, because I think the Nets are a very selfless team. I'm not sure if that applies. Yeah. You obviously watch more of the Nets than I do. They're a very selfless team. They move the ball. Nobody's selfish. And, that's what you got to appreciate. Do a lot of good things well on offense. But I think from a talent level on offense that you guys are pretty solid. But the superstar power of Harden and Embiid on offense is to another level.
It's just it's going to be tough, obviously. And you talk about, being selfless with this team. One of the big guys is Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie over the past month has been up towards the top of the league in assists. And one thing that I love about Dinwiddie is his ability to share the ball, pass, get guys going offensively. But he gets in these bad habits where he feels the need to force shots. And that's you just can't let that happen because the Nets can't just get stops defensively, go down on the other floor, force a three, and all of a sudden you're giving the ball right back to Philly where you're coming up empty-handed. The Nets have gone through stretches this year. That's just the way this team is. They're not an offensive powerhouse like they were with KD. This is a team that's good defensively, and I trust them defensively. And we'll get into kind of what they have to do with Bede, but this is a team where they're going to go through shooting slumps. I mean, we've seen that time and time again over the course since the deadline where they're going to play good defense, but they might go a good chunk of a quarter without scoring. I mean, there's been some 14, 16-point quarters where we've gone outscored by 20 because we can't score. And part of that's been Dinwiddie at time forces shots. That's not his game. He's got to pass. He's got to play. He can't force threes. He forces these contested threes, and it's so frustrating as a fan because it's just missed opportunities. If he just plays his game, I think that's big. So he's one of those guys where we're a selfless team. He's not a guy that's going to take over a game. That's just not what Dinwiddie does. And that's why, as a fan, I'm iffy with Dinwiddie. I like him, and there's parts where I just get annoyed because he'll just go down 3 straight possessions. He'll chuck up threes. He'll get nothing out of it. And just like that, you're looking at an 8-0 run, and you just blew a lead because he's not doing anything. Like, he's just not that type of player.
Right. I basically what you're describing to me is that Dinwiddie's his own worst enemy.
Yeah.
But I think, as you said, he has to be setting up guys for better shot, good shots. He has to play within himself. But I'm also interested. We talked about this player earlier. I'm interested to see what Mikal Bridges does as the first time as a number 1 option against the Sixers defense. He's going to get the best perimeter defender on him, whether it's PJ Tucker or DeAnthony Melton. So I'm very interested to see how they do the matchups. I think and Embiid is going to be better than Claxton overall in the series offensively and defensively. Dinwiddie's probably going to be guarded by DeAnthony Melton. It depends. Again, I don't really know your guys' starting lineup off the bat, but the Sixers are one of the top defensive teams, so I'm interested to see how Doc Rivers is going to scheme defensively for you guys and how Mikal Bridges is going to perform. But it's definitely going to be interesting, man. Definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah, we've continued to roll out Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson, Claxton, Bridges, and Dinwiddie. And then it's going to be interesting because if we get into close game situations, late games, we usually roll out a smaller lineup of Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Royce O'Neal. But it's going to be tough because you're going to need somebody to combat Embiid late in games.
Yeah.
So I assume late games, you're probably going to see Claxton out there, and he'll probably take the spot for Royce O'Neal. So it's going to basically be just the starting lineup late. Because Royce O'Neal, he's kind of again, a 3-and-D guy, can knock down a shot here and there. And that's why they like him late. And Royce O'Neal's been solid this season. So it will be interesting to see kind of how the Nets do. But to me, with stopping Embiid, it starts with, the guards obviously out front. Like, if he gets to the, top of the key, to get outside of the 3-point line, we just have to be so, like, laser focused where you get a double team, because we did that. We've already faced, the Sixers with this group, and we lost barely. I think we lost by 2. It was one of the first games this group was together.
Let me ask, was that the Dinwiddie game where he hit the buzzer beater?
Oh,
but
yeah,
they didn't count it.
Yeah, they didn't count it. The half-court shot. Yeah, we should have won that game, but we didn't score like in the final 6 minutes, and the Sixers came all the way back and we blew it. But in that game, there was a couple moments where we got up double teamed Embiid. He was forced to pass it, and they were forced to take a bad shot, and that's what we need to do. But that's what's going to be hard, is because we're going to be so laser focused. But my biggest concern is if they just keep feeding the ball to Embiid and there's no help, I'm just concerned Claxton's going to get into foul trouble, because that's exactly what happened to Jared Allen when the last time we played him back in 2019. He got into foul trouble early on. And Claxton's been great defensive. I mean, he's having a career year. He's been awesome for us. Been one of the consistents through all of this drama.
Mm-hmm.
But if he gets in foul trouble, and you got to go to a guy like a Day'Ron Sharp, it's over. It's over.
I see Sharp is very raw.
Concern. Yeah,
I see Sharp is very raw. Talking about Claxton obviously has been awesome this season for you guys defensively. To me, Embiid's going to get his free throws. Yeah. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. He's very big to getting to the line, getting to the line. But it's going to be about staying disciplined. Will Jacques Vaughn throw blitzes at Embiid? Will he start the double teams? But the worry is they have some decent shooters where you have a threat of leaving a guy open, like a James Harden or a Tyrese Maxey. It's going to be interesting. So double teaming is probably the best bet.
Yeah,
that's how I see it.
Yeah, and we saw that a couple times in the matchup we had this whatever it was, the matchup where they had the Dinwiddie game. We saw a couple times where they sent out the guards up and they double teamed him, and it worked out well. But how many times they're going to do that eventually is it, it's not going to work every time. Obviously, look, and B, it's similar to how I view like Donovan Mitchell. He's going to put up points. You
Hmm.
just got to find a way to contain him. He can't go off for 45. Claxton get fouled out in the second quarter, and you're left with, Day'Ron Sharpe the rest of the game, and it's a train wreck. You just can't let that happen. So, that's my concern. We gotta hit shots from the perimeter. That's big. Can't force threes, which is my biggest thing with Dinwiddie. And yeah, I mean, I look, I wanna believe in this group. I mean, again, a guy like a Joe
Hmm.
Harris too is gonna be big. Not quite the same player he once was, but still a guy that can knock down a three. Seth Curry as well. We've got some 3-point shooters. We've got some guys. My biggest thing is just stopping Embiid. And Harden, he's still good. I'm not overly worried about Harden. I am. Maxey is very good. He's very
Hmm.
young. He's a guy I could see could take over. But Embiid's obviously, the biggest threat, and that
He's
is
a monster. Yeah.
size. And it's just, do we have enough firepower to contain him's the biggest question, So
Yeah, Harden does have an interesting reputation when it comes to playoffs. He was very bad last year. Same thing
yeah.
with Embiid. I don't know what the game plan was for what Miami decided to throw at them, but I think if you're like Jacques Vaughn, you're looking to go to that semi-conference finals matchup from last year, and you're looking at the film, you're like, what did Eric Spoelstra do to
Yeah.
get Joel Embiid to shoot like 40% from the field
Yeah.
each night? Same thing with James Harden, where he was taking a lot of shots. But Harden, the thing is, like, Harden is no longer like the score. Not that he's no longer the scorer once was. He can put up 27 on any night, but he's
Mhm.
very confined to a role where he's going to be spreading the ball around.
Yeah.
He averaged double digit assists this year. I think it was like 21 and 11. Like, I think he is two-time assist title, three-time scoring title, and that's like never been done before. But Harden obviously is not put himself to the score he once was. So I,
Yeah.
as you said, I don't think you should worry about him much. But Embiid is definitely, from the season he's had in the regular season, it's gonna be a challenge. Definitely gonna be a
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think Harden again. I just want to beat Harden. If
Of
he
course, I understand.
if we lose and Harden has a bad series, I'm gonna be upset. But I just don't want Harden to like take over in these games and crush us, like turn into Houston Rockets, James Harden. But as I talked about, like again, back to the perimeter, Seth Curry is a guy to me that's big because now he is obviously he is dealing I think with an ankle, which is why he missed Sunday's game. So I think he'll be all right. But he's a guy that if he can get hot, he could go 4 for 5 in a game. Go out and play
Mm-hmm.
15, 20 minutes, go 4 for 5, hit some threes, which is big. Another guy off the bench, another guy like Royce O'Neal, 3-and-D guy, which would come up big defensively and hitting some shots. So the bench too is gonna have to step up. But looking at Dinwiddie's numbers, as I talked about earlier, his assist numbers have been insane. He's putting up 12 assists per game in the final month of this season,
Wow.
which has been just amazing. So he put up 14 against Orlando, 16 and then 12 in the last 4 games. He didn't obviously play on Sunday because it was a meaningless game. Bridges was like the only one because he had the 83 games that he was going for. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting series. So I guess we could do predictions now.
Okay.
Hope and would be Nets, obviously, but
Yeah.
realistically, I'm going to say Sixers and 6. I do think the Nets can steal a game. Maybe they catch them kind of sleeping in game 1 like they did in 2019, which I could potentially see, where they come out, a lot of energy, steal a game on the road. Sixers come back, take the next couple. Then maybe they, take a game at home and then they'll go back to Philly and probably nothing will happen there. So I'm going to probably say Sixers and 6. I think this net team can. I just like, there's no more egos on this team. As you mentioned, they're selfless. Like, I just like the way this team's built in terms of they're just going to go out there and play ball. There's not going to be any off the field stuff. They're just going to go out there. They're going to play ball. They're going to be loose. And hopefully I just hope for competitive. Give me a couple wins here. I don't want to get swept. That's all I ask. Obviously, ultimate goal is to win, but the Sixers are 10 times better than us. That's just the reality.
Oh, of course. I'm going to say the Sixers in five. I think the Nets end up stealing a game because they're a really solid team. As you said, I think there'll be a one night where the Sixers are caught napping, but I think the Sixers will rebound. And I think Embiid is obviously the big cog that is going to help this team end up being victorious. So it's not. I don't think it's much of a disappointment, honestly, if the
Yeah.
Nets go down in five, because obviously it was Kevin. This was the season of Kevin Durant and Kyrie supposed to take big leap. They obviously got traded, so not much, in my opinion, was expected from this team going forward. But that the fact that they're in the top six is even a win in itself.
Yeah.
The fact that you're going to be safe, to me, the fact that you'll win a game against the Sixers is a win in itself. So I think Nets fans will be at least satisfied. I know they have the inside passion, the inside urge to beat James Harden, or at least hope he can have a bad series. But I'm going to say Sixers in five.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. um, I bias me says Nets, but it's not happening. It's
Of
definitely
course.
it's not gonna happen. They're gonna lose the series probably, but again, if they could just at least just keep it competitive, as you
Of
mentioned,
course.
just keep it competitive. Get gain couple games in this series. Let's say you go out in five. Have the games be competitive. I don't want out in five, you win one game, and the next four are just flat out blowouts, which is basically what happened in 2019. We got blown
Right.
out in the last game. I think we got blown out in game two, and then we I think we got blown out like two of the next three games after that. Like it was bad. Just keep it competitive, keep it close. Where I'm still interested in watching in the fourth quarter. I don't want this to be 24 games going in the fourth, but kind of wrap up here on the locals. So moving on here as we kind of close out the show. Here with some of the general league wide view on things. I guess we could go through each series here and kind of just first round series just predict and then give us our ultimate winners and predictions for the whole thing. So I guess we could start here with we'll stay in the East. Talked a little about this earlier, but Atlanta, Boston, what do you got?
I think Atlanta's going to be happy they made it this far. Obviously,
Mm,
they were in disarray earlier this season. They fired Nate McMillan. I like the hire of Quinn Snyder. I think I'm going to take the Celtics in five. I think the Hawks are just going to, as I said, happy to be there. But I think the Celtics will be loaded.
yeah, I totally agree. I'm gonna take Celtics. I'll go with you. I'll take Celtics in five too. I think Atlanta might steal one at home. So I'll take Boston there as well. We already did Nets Sixers, already did Knicks Cavs. I think we can both agree I'm taking the Bucks, whoever they end up
Oh, of
playing.
course.
I'm in the
I
Bucks are really my favorite to win it all.
That's same with me. They're a loaded team. You got Giannis who dominates. Chris Middleton, I think a healthy Chris Middleton will put up 20 a game. Brooke Lopez should be a contender for Defensive Player of the Year. You obviously have Grayson Allen. They have some very key veteran role
Mhm.
players. Drew Holiday was an All Star, I think, for the second time in his career. But that team's just loaded. I think they're going to win the finals. I think they're going to sweep their first round opponent.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I have Milwaukee going all the way too. So I see whoever they end up playing, whether it's Miami or I think Toronto's winning by 2 right now. So whether it's
Mhm.
Miami, Chicago, or Toronto, whoever comes out of that, Milwaukee's winning. I totally agree. So that's the East. Now we go to the West here. First round matchups. We'll start with I guess we'll go to the Lakers, the interesting team, the team that some think might make a run. Who do you got in the 7-2 matchup, Lakers Memphis?
I'm going to take the Lakers in an upset. I'm going to say the Lakers take this in about six because I think Memphis has a problem with perimeter shooting, and I think there's a little bit of drama off the court, and
Yeah.
they're just a team in disarray. So I'm taking the Lakers in six, also because of playoff experience too. I think
Yep.
LeBron's going to turn into a playoff LeBron.
You nailed it right on the head. That was one of my big key points is experience, as you mentioned. Memphis has got a little bit, but not enough. I'm
Right.
gonna take the Lakers. I'm gonna go one more. I'm gonna say 7. I'll take LA. Not fully buying into that, but I don't think they'll go all the way. But I do think they'll win this matchup here. Next up, this is going to be, I think, one of maybe the best first round series in the East and the West, and that's Golden State and Sacramento. This is going to be a fun series. I'm looking forward to it. Who you got here? And I guess, I guess we could also talk a little bit here, expand on what Sacramento has done this season, breaking their long stretch of not making the postseason. A fun, solid young group in Sacramento is the Kings, obviously 6 seed in the or 3 seed, right? I think, yeah,
Three
the 3
seed in the
seed
Western
in the
Conference. Yeah.
West.
Yeah, the Kings, like I picked them to be at least in the plan, but it's amazing what Mike Brown has done. It's amazing what Monty McNair has done off like for the team because they have a lot of shooters. They don't play a lot of defense, but they're a fun offense to watch. You obviously have De'Aaron Fox, who took a big leap this year. He's an all-star. Domantas Sabonis is a good big down low, obviously a good passer, good rebounder, good scorer. Harrison Barnes, sharpshooter. Like they have a lot of shooting guys.
Yep.
And obviously, like Malik Monk, as I mentioned, Keegan Murray has stepped up as a nice rookie to add. I like the pick. I think he would be like second or third, should I say, for rookie of the year voting. But I had a tough time originally picking this series because I really want the Kings to win because I
Yeah.
really feel bad for them. You know, I feel great that they made the playoffs, but it's been such a long time for them. But I'm gonna go Warriors in 7. But this series can go either way. I'm gonna go Warriors in 7 because Andrew Wiggins will be back, and I think Steph Curry's gonna light it up. Klay Thompson too. So I'm gonna go Warriors in 7 because of playoff experience too.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. And this isn't anything against Steph or Golden State. I have nothing
Right.
wrong with them. But the Sacramento, kind of the new kids on the block, they're a fun team. They're kind of a team that is not taking the league by storm, but shocked the league. Again,
Right.
a play-in team at the beginning of the year to get to the 3 seed in the West, to finish 14 games above 500 is impressive. And obviously, the De'Aaron Fox is putting up 25 a game, is having a phenomenal season. They're a good, just fun team to watch. As much as I would love to see them make a run, and I think there's potential for this Sacramento team
Yeah.
to make a run. I mean, I could see them winning this series and then moving on. I'm going to go with Golden State. Again, experience. And I can't go against Steph Curry in this. I mean, this is a Kings team organization as a whole, just that hasn't made the playoffs in forever. A Warriors team that has been here, done that. I'll take Golden State as well. And I'll go with you. I think 6-7 games will probably this. I think it's going to be a good series. I think it's going to be a closely, fought series. So I'll take Golden State as well. Just overall, as you mentioned, more experience, and I just can't bet against Steph Curry in this. So I'll take Golden State. And then next up, we got the 5 and the 4. Former net Kevin Durant against Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, on all those guys in LA. So Clippers, Suns, who you got? The Suns, a team that's interesting because they haven't had much time to gel.
That's true.
But similar to the Lakers, healthy, and when they're out there, I mean, at the end of the day, if Kevin Durant, Devin Booker leading the way, anything's possible.
They were in free fall like when Devin Booker was injured before they traded KD. But I'm taking the Suns here. Paul George is going to be out for I don't know how
Yeah.
many games, but he is hurt
Yeah.
for the Clippers. It seems like they always crumble in the playoffs. The Clippers, like they only went to the Western Conference Finals like 2 years ago. I understand that, but I think that was their first time. But I like the Suns team. Like I like Aiton in the playoffs. I like Chris. Like Chris Paul is going to have a much smaller role than he did past years, but I think he'll perform. I think KD. I trust any playoff team with KD on the roster as the main option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
going
definitely.
Suns in 5.
Yeah, Suns. I tend to agree here too. I'm going to take Phoenix. The Clippers, again, they seem to crumble in the playoff. I don't know. I just get this feeling from this Clippers team. Not that it's going to be like a Nets type disaster. I just get this feeling that this super team they built is just not going to work. I just don't think it's going to end in the championship, especially in a Western Conference where Sacramento is just going to continue to get better. You have a team in Denver. Again, you have Phoenix as long as Kevin Durant and Booker are there, which I guess will be a decent amount of time. You have them. The Western Conferences, there's obviously a lot of solid teams. So I don't know. I think time's running out in a way with this LA team. It'll be interesting to see if we see, how Russell Westbrook. I know they asked him today, him and Kevin Durant going against each other, but he said there was no beef there or whatever, although they used to hate each other. But I'll take Phoenix as well. I'll take Phoenix in 6.
All right.
Clippers take a couple, but I'll take Phoenix. And then Denver versus whoever comes out of the play-in, whether it's Minnesota, New Orleans, or OKC in the West.
I'm taking Denver. I'm going to say Denver in 5, no matter who plays them. I think Denver will eventually fall in the second round because I believe that Denver, it's a very good regular season team. They're called what you would call them, Bubs, is they're called a paper tiger, best team on paper,
Mhm.
top of the league. But I like Denver in 5, but I don't think they go all the way. So I think Jokic will perform. I'm just gonna say Denver in 5.
Yeah, I'll take Denver. I could see, as I mentioned to start the show, they're not going to win, but I could see a team like, let's say OKC gets through the
Mm-hmm.
play-in. I could see them being that young underdog team, maybe stealing a game or two from them in the first round, or catch them, sleeping in game one. I
Right.
could potentially see that as a number one seed with all the hype around them. We've seen that a lot, but they'll bounce back. Look, not Sacramento, OKC, New Orleans, or Minnesota. They're just not going to be able to stop Jokic.
Yeah.
And Denver's just the better team. It's similar to Milwaukee, and whoever comes out of the East. It's the same thing. It's the 1 seed versus the play-in. I'm taking Denver, and they'll win pretty easily. 5 games at most, I think. Maybe they'll steal a game, but I could see a sweep, honestly.
Yeah.
When you look at what this Nuggets team can do. So, wrapping up here, what is your overall prediction, I guess, for the entire playoffs? Who do you have coming out of the West, East, and then who you got winning all as well?
I think we're going to see a rematch from 2 years ago. I think it's going to be the Suns versus the Bucks. I'm going to pick the Bucks to win it all. I know it's a little bit repetitive, obviously, from last time. I actually
Yeah.
thought the Suns were going to win it last time, but I just like there's superstar power, obviously, on the Suns with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. They're unmatched. But to me, like the Bucks have a lot of veteran role players who I think will step up. Bobby Portis, Grayson Allen, Jay Crowder in the mix too. The Suns behind the superstars, behind the starting lineup, I'm not a big fan of because obviously they traded Mikal Bridges, they had to, and Cam Johnson, they had to in that trade. So the depth I think will be tested in the playoffs, but I think it will be Bucks in 6.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I'm going with a different finals matchup, but I do have the Bucks winning. I think it's going to be the Bucks and the Warriors. I do think the Warriors come out of the West. I know they're not, I guess, as maybe hyped as they've been in past years. As much as I think Sacramento can give them some trouble, and I am rooting for Sacramento, I think they'll get through that series. Um, to me, I've learned this even, last year too. I feel like anytime, I guess maybe I doubt the Warriors or I don't think they're going anywhere, they end up getting to the finals anyway.
Right.
So I think they'll get there. I'm going to take the Bucks. Giannis. They've obviously got Drew Holiday, as you mentioned. They've got some veterans like Bobby Portis and some pieces like that. Giannis putting up 31 and 11, I think, this year, or something crazy like that. It's 30. I think it's something like that. It's Giannis. I mean, he's
He's
just
an MVP
insane. So,
candidate almost every
yep,
year.
exactly. Yeah, he's and something too about him is when you look at a lot of these superstars around the NBA, a lot of them are switching teams all the time. I mean, Kevin Durant being one of them. He's a guy that is stuck in Milwaukee his entire career, has never really had. I mean, he's done it all himself because he never
Right.
really had like another big time superstar. I know Chris Middleton has obviously had some really nice seasons and some career years, but like Chris Middleton's not a
He's not.
star.
No,
It's been Giannis.
he's an all-star. He's not a
Yeah,
superstar.
exactly. And Giannis has been there. They were obviously there when he first started. They weren't very good. The Bucks got somebody special. Number 1 seed. I'll take the Bucks over the Warriors. I'll say in 7 just to make it a little dramatic. I'll take
Yeah.
Milwaukee here in 7, but I just don't see anybody stopping the Bucks. Now, if Klay Thompson and Steph Curry get hot, I mean they can beat anybody on a night in, night out basis. Two of some of the better shooters. I mean, Steph Curry is the best shooter of all time. And then
Right.
obviously Klay Thompson, when he catches fire, is phenomenal. So it'll be fun, but I'm looking forward to it. I guess if there was one underdog team that you could see potentially winning it, like a dark horse, who would be your pick?
That's definitely an interesting question. I'll go from the West and the East. From the East, I'll say the Sixers. I think I have them making the Eastern Conference Finals, but I see them as a dark horse. The Western Conference, I'm gonna go with It's pretty wide open, honestly. Maybe the Warriors or the Lakers, honestly. I don't have the Warriors making the finals, but I think I have them making the conference finals.
Yeah, I'll go West. I could see as a dark horse potentially Sacramento. I'll take them as like a dark horse. And again, I know they're a 3 seed and they're higher seed than Golden State, but I don't think many. I think the odds are Golden State. I believe
Right.
Golden State are probably favorites, right? I think they have to be. I mean, no way
It can't be
Sacramento's
that much of an
favored.
upset, honestly,
Yeah,
because the
they can't
Warriors
be.
have the playoff experience.
Yeah. So I'll take Sacramento there because when you look at the rest of the West, I mean, I guess you consider LA, but LA's the Lakers are getting a ton of hype. It's LeBron James. I don't know if I really consider LeBron James as a dark horse, so I'll take
Yeah.
Sacramento. And the East is tough. Like the East is really tough because like Atlanta, I don't think has any shot. 76ers, I could see that. To be honest with you, whoever comes out of that Cleveland Knicks series, not saying they're going to win it all, I could see them making a run because out of everybody in the East, that is probably your best first round matchup.
Yeah.
Between the Knicks and the Cavs. So I could potentially see a team coming out of there. I mean, again, if that series goes deep, goes 7 games, do they get worn down? That is a question, but I would probably say that 4-5 matchup could definitely be some two dark horse teams that can make a run. I guess we'll see. The Lakers will be interesting to watch if we finally see a play-in team make a deep run. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So
yes, it will.
I'm looking forward to it and hoping that it's gonna be a wild week in New York sports because you have the Rangers, you got the Nets, you got the Knicks. Obviously, if you're an Islanders fan, they're trying to clinch the playoff. They're trying to clinch and get in. So you have the Isles as well, plus baseball. So a great time right now to be a New York sports fan, a sports fan in general. I mean, California, all 4 basketball teams, Bay Area, are in. So it's a fun time to be a sports fan. I really appreciate you coming on. Tell everybody where they can find your channel and what you're doing there and your social media and all that good stuff.
Well, my social media is on the tagline "Boys Big Apple Pod" on Twitter. I'm a part of the Big Blue in the Bronx channel that my brother runs. It's mainly Giants and Yankees, but we do Boys in the Big Apple Pod on Monday night, where we go over all the latest sports headlines. Obviously later on this month we'll be covering the NFL draft. We'll be talking Yankees, baseball, all that, NBA playoffs. We'll be streaming some games, definitely. The Knicks, obviously, this upcoming Saturday. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I really enjoy watching you guys, and definitely if you haven't checked that out, they just surpassed 1.1K.
1.1K.
Awesome. So definitely go check them out. Hit them up with a subscribe, and definitely go follow Luca on all the social media platforms. I believe is that Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Or
that's my Twitter. Yeah, that's my Twitter.
Nice. All right, so definitely go check them out. Really appreciate you coming on. Thank you all for watching. And stay tuned for a lot more content coming your way. NBA playoffs this Saturday, Nets, Sixers, Knicks, Cavs should be a lot of fun. So as always, hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching.